It began with strange lights in the sky. Pilots flying through enemy territory saw glowing orbs pacing their bombers. Silent, fast, untouchable. They weren't on radar, they weren't enemy planes, and no one could explain them. Some thought they were secret German weapons. Others whispered that they came from somewhere far beyond Earth. By the end of the war, thousands of soldiers had seen them. They called them Foo Fighters. Stay until the end to hear what American troops really encountered, and why this World War II mystery remains unsolved to this day. When American troops encountered UFOs, the Foo Fighters of World War II. During the final years of World War II, as Allied bombers thundered through the night skies over Europe, a strange phenomenon began to appear. Lights that moved faster than any aircraft, glowing spheres that followed bombers, and objects that danced through anti-aircraft fire as if mocking both sides of the war. They were silent, brilliant, and impossible to explain. The men who saw them called them Foo Fighters. At first, the encounters were rare. Just a few pilots reporting mysterious lights off their wings as they crossed the Rhine or returned from bombing runs over Germany. But by late 1944, the reports became impossible to ignore. Entire bomber crews described glowing orbs pacing their aircraft, darting around them at impossible speeds, and then vanishing into the clouds. To the men flying those missions, these were not hallucinations or tricks of the light. They were trained observers, flying some of the most dangerous missions of the war, and they knew what enemy aircraft looked like. What they saw defied everything they understood about flight and warfare. The first reports came from the 415th Night Fighter Squadron, an American unit flying over the French-German border. Pilots reported glowing orange and white lights following their planes through the night. Some said the objects seemed playful, darting ahead, then slowing down, almost as if they were studying the bombers. When the pilots tried to turn or climb, the lights mirrored their movements perfectly. Intelligence officers were skeptical at first. They assumed the men were seeing new types of German aircraft or flares meant to confuse Allied pilots. But soon, British, Canadian, and even Soviet pilots began describing the same thing. These glowing spheres were appearing everywhere, over Italy, over the Balkans, even in the Pacific. The Allied command grew concerned. Could Germany have developed a secret weapon, a drone, or a jet-powered light aircraft that could outmaneuver anything in the sky? In late 1944, the U.S. military intelligence began investigating the phenomenon seriously. But every explanation led to more confusion. Radar operators reported nothing. No enemy aircraft, no incoming signals, nothing visible on the screens. Yet pilots in the air swore the objects were real, sometimes only a few hundred feet away. One bomber crew described a group of fiery balls rising from the ground near the Black Forest and keeping pace with their plane all the way to the coast. They tried firing their machine guns, but the rounds had no effect. The lights simply danced away and disappeared. As the war dragged on, the sightings only increased. Some pilots believed they were seeing supernatural signs, the spirits of the dead, or omens warning them of disaster. Others were convinced it was an advanced Nazi weapon, perhaps guided by radio control. But when Germany fell in 1945, and Allied investigators swept through the ruins of the Third Reich, they found no trace of any such device. In fact, German and Japanese pilots had reported seeing the same mysterious lights themselves. Some Luftwaffe reports described glowing orbs trailing their own bombers, sometimes appearing in pairs, moving with perfect synchronization. Both sides thought the other had created them. That realization left the Allied command even more disturbed. If the Foo Fighters were not a German weapon, then what were they? After the war, the U.S. Army Air Forces and the British Ministry of Defense quietly collected hundreds of pilot testimonies. Some of the accounts were astonishingly detailed. One American bomber pilot described a silver disc the size of a fighter plane that flew beside his B-17 for nearly 5 minutes before shooting straight up into the clouds at impossible speed. Another reported a red ball of light that followed his plane for hours, weaving between formations as if it were alive. When questioned, the pilots insisted these were not hallucinations. The objects cast reflections on their aircraft, sometimes illuminated the clouds, and behaved with purpose. By 1946, the reports had reached the highest levels of command. Military scientists offered a range of theories. Some blamed natural phenomena, ball lightning, reflections from anti-aircraft shells, or static discharges from the planes themselves. Others suspected advanced enemy prototypes, though none were ever found. In the years that followed, the sightings did not stop. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, new reports of strange aerial objects began to emerge over America itself. Discs, spheres, and bright lights moving faster than any known aircraft. To many in the military, it felt like the Foo Fighters had simply changed their battlefield. Even today, the Foo Fighter phenomenon remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of World War II. Thousands of pages of military records exist, but no conclusive explanation has ever been found. Historians, scientists, and UFO researchers still debate what those pilots truly saw. Some believe they were secret experimental weapons. Others think they were natural plasma events. And some, even now, suggest they were something far more extraordinary. For the men who saw them, the memory never faded. Many veterans described those silent, glowing lights as the strangest thing they had ever experienced. They could fight the enemy, they could face flak and fire, but they could not understand what followed them through the dark skies of Europe and the Pacific. To this day, the term Foo Fighter remains part of aviation legend, a mystery born in war, carried in secrecy, and still unexplained after nearly a century. Whatever they were, enemy weapons, natural wonders, or something beyond human technology, they left behind a question that no one has ever been able to answer. What really followed those American bombers through the clouds in the last days of World War II? Let us know in the comments. And if they weren't ours or theirs, then who or what were they? Subscribe for more true World War II stories.